it's time for the penultimate prep-in of the year. So we're working with the Strictly Come Dancing data that we were working with a few weeks back. So we remember that we had these issues where the headers of the tables repeat, as you can kind of see here. So first of all, we need to deal with that. So we go into the couple field because that's kind of the easiest one to spot those headers, it being starting with a C, it's quite high up, quite easy to spot that there. So we just click on that and then we exclude all those rows. And that's all we do in that first step there. Okay, so next up what we want to do is we want to extract the week number from all of these fields, all these rows, sorry. Clearly can't speak today. So we could use some regex to do that. That's probably how I would choose to do it if I were going to solve this myself, but let's use some of Prep's functionality instead. So we can just go ahead and we can clean and we can remove the letters and we can remove the punctuation and then we can remove all the spaces, and that just leaves us with the numbers. But if we do that, then we do have an issue with one of these weeks here, which is that there is a themed week that was celebrating 100 years of the BBC. There we go. So celebrating BBC 100, so we would get week 5100 if we did it that way. So before we do all those cleaning steps, we do need to do a quick split where we split the values on the colon and we just keep the first part of it, and then we can go through cleaning up the punctuation and the letters and the spaces. So that's all the steps that I've taken in this step here. So done that splitting off on that colon, and then just got rid of this original week field, renamed this one to be just week, and then removing all the punctuation, removing all the letters, and then removing all the spaces too, and making sure that it is a numeric data type. Cool. So I realised later that I could have used the information in that week field to extract the final, everyone who was in the final, but I didn't do it that way. I did it a slightly different way. So let's check out how I did that here. So I came to that result field, and I realised that runners up is spelt differently. It's spelt with a capital U and a lowercase u, so I made sure to group those two together. And then I thought, well, anyone who's a runner up, a winner, or in third place, they were all in the final. So those are the only ones that I'm going to keep. So basically, yep. So saying if they were winners, runners up, or in third place, then keep the result, otherwise have that as a null. And then in order to make that kind of classification apply to all rows of that couple, because for example, the winners include Natasha and Brendan, but then if I'm not looking at that final week, then they are not classed as a finalist, they just have a null in their row. And so we fix that with a level of detail calculation. So grouping by each series and couple, we just take the maximum of that finalist field that we just created. And now we can see even in week 1, Natasha and Brendan are classified as the winners. So we filter out all those couples who are not winners, or in the final, should I say. Okay. And then we're dealing with the scores field, so we want to know basically what their score was, so anything that comes before those brackets, and then we want to use those individual judges' scores. We want to know how many judges there were that week, because sometimes it's 3 judges, sometimes it's 4 judges, sometimes it's even 5 judges, so let's account for that basically. So we do a split based on the opening bracket as our first step there. So as we can tell, Prep's going a little bit slow today. It's also feeling a bit tired, I can tell. So then we've got our score and we've got our number of judges there. So we'll work out our number of judges after we've done a little bit of renaming. So from that field that we had, we're just going to remove all the numbers because we don't actually care about those individual numbers. And now you can see that we've got a lot of commas and we've got some brackets. And so we are going to just basically use the length as the number of judges, because if there were 3 judges' scores, for example, there'll be 2 commas and a closing bracket. Counting that up, that makes 3. So we'll use that as our logic there. and it kind of corresponds in the way that we're expecting. So that's all good. Those times where we have 0 judges, that's just because they did a group dance of some variety. But basically, when we calculate the average score for each judge, as in average judges' score, so the score divided by the number of judges, then anything that has 0 judges is just going to get nulled out anyway, so that's okay. We're not going to care about those. So we're working out that average judges' score. Anything that has 0 judges gets to be... Ooh, it doesn't actually make it null. Oh well, that's not working quite how I wanted it to, but that's okay. Okay, so then we are going to average that out anyway. Average the judges' scores across that. So we only have basically, for each couple, we have just one row for each week that they're in the competition, and in order to filter that to just be their min and their max week in the competition, then we use a couple of LODs. So for each series and couple, we calculate the min week, because as you can see there, sometimes they didn't dance until week 2, so we need to take that into consideration. Do the same for the max week, and then we just filter out the last week equals week, or the first week equals week. And then we can just do our little percentage change there. So going into that average judges score field, and doing a percentage difference from calculation, making sure that we're sorting our week in ascending order for each series and couple, and just seeing what that percentage change was, and then only keeping the row where they were in the final, basically. And this is our results. So some of the things that I thought were interesting as a result of this. So these 4 couples have achieved that perfect score in the final, and yet only Caroline and Pasha were the winners there, which is pretty interesting. Who are some of our kind of people who did massive improvements in the series? Did that mean that they won? Well, we can see that we've got about 4. We've got more than 4. How many rows is that? We've got 4. We've got 7 couples there, and we can see that 3 of those were winners. So kind of 50% of the time, roughly, having that massive improvement leads to you winning. We can't see, for example, we can see in Series 18, there were 2 couples who had massive improvement from their first dance to the last, like nearly double their scores, basically. But obviously they couldn't both win. And so it was only Bill and Oti that won that year. And then to see if it's kind of, those who don't make any improvement at all, are they kind of less likely to win? If they're consistent the whole way through, it would seem that that theory is kind of being supported here, actually. Yeah, if you're quite consistent, if you're not making a huge improvement throughout the series, we can't see anyone yet who has won from that. Okay, once you start to get up to like 20 to 30% improvement, that's when we do see some more winners creeping in. So interesting. And then we can just look at our, obviously, percentage change histogram over there for all of those winners and see that it is pretty spread out, I guess. Oh, there was a winner in this section here. So Hamza and Yuvita, even though they didn't make a huge amount of improvement, they were the people's favourite throughout. So interesting stuff to me, for sure, but I hope you enjoyed this challenge, and thanks very much for watching.